For sure, for sure, for sure. Me and Ebony go way back. I met about 10, 11 years ago through a mutual friend, attending a few functions with a, hey, delete that picture though. That's the one.
I
Delete
can't,
that.
I can't, I can't delete that picture though. That picture is pre-COVID. That picture represents freedom, represents fun.
I'm just, I'm just saying I might be president one day, and that's like my worst and funniest pick. But just get a,
All right, all right, all right.
all right, just give the people a brief intro about you.
Yeah, so my name is Ebony. I actually just started a channel making melanated moves. I am a return Peace Corps volunteer. I live in Peru. I am a mother to one son, and I'm married to a Peruvian.
Mhm. Right. So you said Peace Corps. Why did you decide to enter Peace Corps?
Long story short, when I was in college, I always wanted to do like a study abroad, and I could never get it together. It just almost seemed like it was out of reach, and I always had an interest in anything that dealt with service, volunteering. My major was sociology, so I was always into that realm of social services and trying to understand what was the cause of any kind of issues that was going on in our environment, whether it was health related or social justice related. So it was always an interest of mine to be involved in some kind of realm of giving back.
Right.
And I always wanted to do a study abroad, and so it seemed like that was the best way to marry the two, as well as learn another language. And so that was pretty much the best way for me to do all of that in
Right.
one.
Right. Yeah, I looked into it a little bit after college. I did go another route, but I know it was a couple of perks. Like, did they help with some with college loans or?
So, I mean, there was a lot of things. So, those were the main reasons why I even had a passion to even apply.
Mm-hmm.
When I actually did more research about the program, that's when I found out a lot of the perks. So, some of the big perks that they have were they don't do tuition reimbursement. What they did was that they kind of froze your loans while you were in service. So you
Mm-hmm.
didn't owe anything because technically you weren't making any money because you were technically a volunteer. And then after you finish Peace Corps, they gave you like a lump sum of what they called like a readjustment allowance. And I
Mm-hmm.
at the time, because I served from 2014 to 2016, it was about $6,000 that they gave us when we finished, and that was pretty much for you to get reintegrated back into American life. Like that was just like some money to help you get yourself back on your feet after being out of the game for so long.
What was the Peace Corps experience like?
Yeah, so I would probably say that for me, it started off rough. Like I thought that I mean I hated everything about Peru, everything about everything when I first arrived, and it was just the funniest thing because I didn't like, mind you, one of the big pieces of the experience is knowing the language. And you think that after having so many Spanish classes from middle school, high school, college, you think that you know a little something. Just going from having class experience to actually going into the belly of the beast, and actually having to be on the ground with something that I just had a really hard time adjusting to. So it was like for me, the at first getting to site or getting to the country, I was just really lost. There wasn't a lot of black people in my group. There was like 56 of us and only two of us were black. So that was awkward for me from, living in Atlanta, being from Atlanta for the most part, being around so many black people to
Mm-hmm.
suddenly being one of two
Right.
was very awkward, right? So it started off rough in that sense. But then it was like, as I started to find the other black people that were in Peace Corps in Peru, because we came in groups. And so in my group, there was 56, but in the whole country, there was like 250 of us. And
Mm-hmm.
so, of course, we found each other. And then that helped me improve my experience. I also started to get to know the language, and I got out of my shell. And I think that was the biggest piece, was to go from being a professional and being so used to working and knowing what you're doing to then starting from fresh, almost like a child. You're starting new. You're in a new place. new language, you're learning a new job, all of this at the same time while trying to learn another culture. And so that was crazy when I first started, so it took a while to adjust. But once I did, it was just a beautiful experience from, just meeting new people, seeing the country, helping others, and being able to, see the improvement because I was a public health volunteer. So seeing the actual improvement in their lives, because I worked with mothers, pregnant women, and their babies and infants. So just seeing their health improve, people, one of the biggest issues that we have in Lambayeque, Peru, where I served, is malnutrition. So you're
Mm,
talking about actually watching the growth and development of a child from having uncontrollable diarrhea for months on end, right? Which is because they're drinking dirty water, things like that, to seeing them getting their height and weight together was a beautiful thing. So I just say that, being able to give back in those ways and learn the language, make friends, all of that was just wonderful. But it started off rough, I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, the philanthropy, the humanitarianism type work. I know they help with natural disasters sometime, right? And even
Hmm.
building infrastructure for undeveloped areas. Were the natives initially like receptive? Did you feel like they were hospitable off rip, or did it kind of like warm up?
Yeah, so actually, so where I served was because I live in the city now in Lima, which is the capital, but where I lived was about 14 hours north on a bus. And so that was in the desert. Pretty interesting. When I first got there, it started rough
Mm-hmm.
because when I first got there was this child. All the kids were like, what is this? What is going on? Because I had these braids. So this was already weird. The fact that I was number one black, I spoke English, and that I had these braids was just throwing everybody off, but not in a negative way, like ew. It was like, what is going on with her? Like, what is this? And and then the part that threw me off was that it was probably like my first day like walking around, and then this child was like mono mono mono, which means monkey in Spanish. And so, oh my god, I tell you right now, like when that happened, it broke me so bad, as I was already insecure about being black in this area where I didn't see any black people. So I was already scared and nervous about that. And then when this child did that and said that, it totally broke my spirit, into the sense that, like, I left my hair in braids like my entire service. Like I literally hid like my natural hair, which is very long in 4C hair. I hid my hair until I finished service because I was so scared about like getting comments about that. You know what I mean? So that, and mind you, when I eventually took my braids out my last week, they didn't even notice. So it was like, but it started off like weird in that sense that that child had said that. And but besides that child saying that, nobody else was ever like saying anything that was, offensive for the most part. I mean, they would say things. They have this thing in some parts of Peru where they'll kind of say like sambita, sambita, which is like, if you think of sambo, it comes from that. And they don't really understand where it comes from, but they'll say, like, if they see a black person, sometimes they'll say like, oh, sambita, but they'll say it with endearment. But when I first got there, I was like, I'm not nobody's sambo. Like, I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what that, and they're just like, whoa. So so there's little things like that that you realize are like part of the culture, that they sometimes don't even have a real sense of where it comes from, and they're just saying things and don't really know consciously of where it came from. So there were little instances like that where I kind of had to realize, like, okay, Ebony, you're in a new place. Like, this is a new culture. Not everything may mean exactly what you think it means with your Black American brain. So that was something that I had to definitely adjust to. But as far as my service was concerned, it was really about me being like American. I really had more of like American privilege being in Peru, and the race part didn't really affect me at all. It affected me more in Peace Corps, you
Mm,
know, than it did actually being in Peru as an expat, if you will.
right. At what point and why did you decide to live in Peru as a resident?
Well, I told you earlier that my husband is actually Peruvian, and I met him while I was in Peace Corps. And
Mm,
so I decided to move here basically when because we had already gotten married, and during the pandemic, everything shut down. Like I had went back to DC where I was working at the time for the government. And I thought I was going to be back for a couple of months and then come back. And then everything like shut down, and that was very traumatic for us, like having to go through this big beautiful wedding. All my family and friends came to Peru to celebrate with us, and then it was like I'm never gonna see you again. Like, it was just the craziest thing. And so, and then we started to do like our family planning and stuff. Like once everything opened up, we were got back to trying to plan our marriage again, our next steps with our relationship. And once like the family planning came into play, and then I ended up having getting pregnant, it was like, okay, I need to be with my spouse in Peru. What I wanted was like a more comfortable, stable, relaxed setting instead of being on the go, go, go like I was in DC. So it was just like a better environment, being pregnant and not having to worry about money and working so much. And it was just really great to enjoy, being pregnant, and especially reconnect with my husband after us having to be separated where we were.
mm, right. Has there been any cultural adjustments or situations related to culture where you had to adapt?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that all the time. I mean, especially when I was in Peace Corps, it was really trying to the fact that the first thing is that I live with a host family. And so living with another family, as an adult was really real there, so it was like trying to understand their culture, because even their culture being from northern Peru is different from being from the capital.
Right.
You're talking about a town that has like 15,000 people versus the capital, which is millions and millions of people.
Mm,
So they have their own culture themselves. I mean, to the point to where you're at parties, you look somebody in the eye while you're dancing, they think you want to date them. It's like that. You go to a wedding, they're gifting each other they're bringing sofas and refrigerators and couches and all this stuff, TVs into the wedding for gifts. So these are like weird things that that I thought were weird at the time that I was seeing. And so as far as like even with adjusting in general, it was definitely something that I had to figure out. There were a lot of times where you might accidentally offend somebody in American culture, maybe even to Black American culture. Like we tend to be very direct, and I think a lot of that was something that I had to kind of tone down, because being direct is almost seen as disrespectful a lot of times with certain Peru. I don't want to say all Peruvians, but that's been a big thing for me here, is that when you're speaking very direct, um, it comes off as like sometimes aggressive, and it makes people uncomfortable. A lot of times what I experienced in Peace Corps is that people would rather lie to you
yeah, yeah.
and say like they are going to come to like your birthday or whatever, knowing darn well they're not going to go because they don't want to let you down. It's like stuff like that
That
that was all weird.
yeah, that's a good point because you say like the North and the South could be different in kind of culture, and that's like that in the states. Like you from state to state, or different parts of the state, you can have different customs and dialects.
Mhm.
What people think of like a country, and it's just like, oh, what do they do? But it's variety within that country. Um, any part and thoughts for the youth as a whole?
Yeah, for the youth, I mean, obviously, I'm going to keep tooting, the horn for Peace Corps. That was honestly one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life. And I say that because again, it gave me the opportunity to it opened my eyes to so many different things. Most of the programs do require you to have a bachelor's degree, but some don't, especially if you have a lot of work history. You
Mm,
can work around that to
right.
get in. Some require language and some don't. And even now you have the ability to to apply to a specific country. When I applied, I didn't know where I was going. I said I wanted to go somewhere Spanish speaking, but I didn't know they were going to send me to Peru. I could have gone anywhere. And so that was a big difference that, between then and now, is that now you can actually say, I want to serve in Jamaica. I
Yeah.
want to serve in Costa Rica. I want to serve in Panama. I want to serve in Zimbabwe. Like, you can actually decide that now, which we didn't have that before. And I think that serving in the Peace Corps again was the best decision I ever made, because now I speak another language. When I finished, just sprung me into a career with the federal government, which was awesome. I made it to a six-figure earner because of that, which was an awesome experience there. Um, Again, they gave you the money to get reacclimated back into society. You're part of a huge network of people. I mean, it's almost like a fraternity, if you will. It's like everybody. I mean, everybody from ex-presidents to to entertainers to businessmen and women around the United States have served in the Peace Corps, and you put that on your resume, it's like puts you to the top in a lot of things. So it's almost, being part of that network has been a huge deal. So I really want the youth to take advantage of this experience that you can take advantage of, which is with the federal government. You don't want to see the world? Let the federal government pay for you to do it. You know, want to give back? Let the federal government pay for you to do that. You're going to have the best health insurance you could ever think of while you were in the Peace Corps. You're going to come back bilingual, even trilingual sometimes. You're going to make lifelong friends, and it's a 2-year commitment. And you're going to be put on this amazing track, career wise, for your future and income and earnings. So especially not even just the youth. I mean, anyone of any age can join the Peace Corps. So it's not about being a teen or in your 20s, 30s. I mean, we had volunteers that were in their 80s. I mean, this is even a great opportunity for people to take advantage of. If they're married, you can do it with your spouse. You
Mm-hmm.
can do it after you retire. This is a great opportunity for people that want to blacks it out of the states. Do it with the federal government's dime, because other races, they're taking advantage of these programs. They're taking advantage of these programs. And I'm talking about people that were wealthy, with wealthy parents, are in the Peace Corps doing this because they know the strength that it has on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want the youth and anyone of any age, especially Black people in general, because that's who I really am passionate about trying to promote this program to. I really want Black people in general to take advantage of these programs like the Peace Corps, like AmeriCorps. I did AmeriCorps too. These are federal programs that the government is sending people to go and do this work. You don't have any internships on your resume? Then do something like this. This is the best way to do it. And they're not paying you as far as getting a salary, but they cover all your living expenses. So you're getting little money to spend here and there, but you're not hurting for anything. So
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that people take my words and go research themselves. I don't work for the Peace Corps. I have to say that, make that disclaimer. I don't work for the Peace Corps, but I do run an Instagram page called Black PCV, which is what I use to kind of help promote Black people that did the Peace Corps, that are in the Peace Corps, to just kind of show people like we're doing it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So if you want to hear more from me, then making melanated moves on YouTube. Just got started, but I'm going to be talking a lot more about this and what it's like to live abroad and being a mom here and intercultural relationships and all of that. So there's a whole conversation we can have about all of those things. But
Right.
I hope I can inspire someone to take that step and apply.
For sure. Check out that YouTube, and Peace Corps sounds like a viable option. Appreciate you coming through, spreading the knowledge. It was dope. Appreciate it. Everybody keep elevating. Y'all enjoy. Appreciate you. Later.